Renault spent years being the brand people respected without ever quite desiring, and the Rafale is the clearest sign yet that the company wants to change that. This is the car positioned at the very top of the Renault range, a coupe SUV that borrows its name from a record-breaking aircraft and its engineering attitude from Alpine, the performance arm that usually keeps its talents to itself. Sitting in a showroom in Bucharest, finished in this deep Esprit Alpine blue, it does not look like a car trying to win on value alone. It looks like a Renault that finally believes it belongs in the same conversation as the German brands it has spent decades watching from a distance. That is a bold place for the brand to stand, and the rest of the car has to back it up. The shape is the first argument it makes. The Rafale uses the same underpinnings as the more conventional Austral, but where the Austral plays it safe, the Rafale slopes its roofline into a proper fastback tail and lets the rear haunches do the talking. The full-width light signature, the gloss black tailgate panel, and the way the Esprit Alpine badge sits low on the front wing all suggest a car that was styled by people who cared about the details. It is not subtle, but it is not overdone either, and in person the proportions hold together better than photographs suggest. The wheels fill the arches properly. The black contrast roof flows into the spoiler without looking tacked on, and from the rear three-quarter angle, this is one of the more genuinely striking shapes in its class. The diamond pattern grille and the slim headlights give the front a sharper face than anything Renault was building only a few years ago, and the whole car looks expensive standing still. Under the hood sits the part of the story that buyers argue about the most. This is the E-Tech Full Hybrid, a system built around a small turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol engine paired with 2 electric motors and a clutchless multi-mode gearbox. The combined output is 200 horsepower, sent to the front wheels, and Renault quotes a 0 to 62 time of roughly 9 seconds. There is a reasonable objection here, and it is worth stating plainly. A small 3-cylinder engine in a car priced near the premium segment strikes some buyers as too modest for the money, and that reaction comes up again and again. The recovery is in how the system actually behaves. The electric motors handle low-speed driving almost entirely. The petrol engine stays quiet when it is not needed, and the result is a claimed 60 miles per gallon and a real-world touring range that Renault puts beyond 680 miles on a single tank. For a car this size, that is genuinely difficult to ignore, and it reframes the small engine from a weakness into the reason the efficiency figures look the way they do. The gearbox can hesitate when you ask for a sudden burst of speed, but in the kind of everyday driving most owners actually do, the powertrain feels smoother and more relaxed than the spec sheet would have you expect. There is also a noticeable benefit in town, where the Rafale slips into electric running at low speeds and turns the stop and start crawl of city traffic into something close to silent, and that is where a lot of owners will spend most of their miles. Inside is where the Rafale makes its strongest case, and where the Alpine influence stops being a badge and starts being a feeling. The dashboard is built around a large portrait touchscreen running Google built in, which means the maps, the voice assistant, and the app structure are the same ones most people already use on their phones, with no learning curve to fight through. The driving position is low and snug. The materials around the most touched surfaces feel a clear step above what Renault offered even a few years ago, and the Alcantara trim with its blue and red stitching gives the cabin a sense of occasion. There is a separate display angled toward the driver, and a head-up projection that keeps your eyes forward, and the ambient lighting wraps around the cabin without tipping into gimmick. If breakdowns like this help you sort the genuine upgrades from the marketing, subscribe so you catch the next one before you buy. The front cabin treats the driver and passenger as the priority. The seats carry the small Alpine logo stitched into the headrests. The center console is tall and wraps around the driver, and there is a wireless charging pad sat behind a sliding cover that keeps the clutter out of sight. The flat-bottomed steering wheel and the metal pedals lean into the sporting intent, and the whole space feels tailored rather than assembled. There is proper storage under the central armrest, a pair of cup holders that stay out of the way, and physical climate shortcuts that mean you are not buried in menus every time you want to change the temperature. It is the kind of interior that justifies the higher trim level the moment you sit in it, and it holds up to a second and third look rather than impressing only on first contact. The rear cabin is more of a compromise, and it is the honest cost of that dramatic roofline. Legroom is good, and the bench is comfortable, with its own air vents and a pair of charging ports. But taller passengers will find the sloping roof eats into headroom in a way the boxier Austral avoids. Renault tried to soften this with the optional Solarbay panoramic roof, a single sheet of glass that switches between clear and opaque at the touch of a button or a voice command, And it does make the space feel airier than the headroom figure alone would suggest. The door panels carry the same blue accent and soft materials as the front, so the back does not feel like an afterthought, and for two adults on a long trip, it is a comfortable place to sit. It is only the third passenger in the middle, and anyone tall, who will notice the roofline closing in. The boot is the clearest example of the coupe SUV trade-off. With the rear seats up, the full hybrid offers 530 liters, which is competitive, and crucially, this version adds a further 117 liters of underfloor storage, where the plug-in model keeps its battery. That hidden compartment is one of those details owners come to appreciate every time they need to hide something out of sight. The loading area is wide and flat. The powered tailgate opens to a sensible height, and folding the rear seats opens up a long space that swallows more than the sloping glass would lead you to believe. The only real limit is height, since the tapering roof means you cannot stack boxes the way you could in a traditional estate. But for suitcases, shopping, and the daily clutter of family life, it works without complaint. There is also a question of price that runs underneath all of this. In Romania, the Rafale starts around 40,000 euros, with this Esprit Alpine specification sitting closer to 44,400 euros, which translates to roughly $52,000. That places it squarely against premium badged rivals, and that is exactly the comparison some buyers refuse to accept from a Renault. The counter-argument is equipment. Match an Audi or a BMW to the standard kit the Rafale carries at this trim, with the panoramic roof, the upgraded audio, the heated seats, and the camera systems all included, and the gap narrows far more than the badges would lead you to expect. You are paying for content rather than a logo, and whether that trade makes sense depends entirely on how much the badge on the nose matters to you. What the Rafale represents matters more than any single number it posts. It is Renault saying out loud that it wants to be judged against the premium brands rather than priced below them, and it has built a car convincing enough to make that an honest argument rather than a hopeful one. The styling has real presence, the cabin feels genuinely upmarket, and the efficiency is the kind that quietly saves money every month rather than just looking good in a brochure. Whether buyers are ready to spend premium money on a Renault is the open question, but the car itself has clearly done its part, and that alone tells you how far the brand has come. A few years ago, a car like this from Renault would have struggled to be taken seriously at this price. And now the conversation is not whether it deserves to be there, but whether the buyer is willing to look past the badge to see it. That shift, more than any single feature, is the real story of the Rafale. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or questions. I read every single one. And don't forget to click the bell icon to get notified about my next upload. See you in the next video.